Happy weekend, happy almost weekend, Texas Values supporters. This is your Texas Values policy team welcoming you to the first Friday session update of 2025. I'm Jonathan Covey, Director of Policy, and with me is Mary Elizabeth Castle, Director of Government Relations, and Megan Benton, our Strategic Policy Associate. So now some of you may remember that during legislative sessions, we typically try to bring you an end of the week recap on activities that happened at the Texas Capitol, as well as some highlights of what happened. So, as the session heats up, we're bringing back those Friday recaps. And as things get busier in the next month or so, we may do even more of them, more often than once a week. So, with that being said, some significant activities did take place this week in Austin, and Mary Elizabeth is here to fill us in on some of those things that happened. Mary Elizabeth?
Yes, so legislative hearings already started this week. You may have seen on our social media that we were present at the Senate education hearing. They were hearing a bill, SB2, on education savings accounts, which, if you've been paying attention this past week to the Lieutenant Governor's office, is a top priority for his office. We were there to testify. We also did a Facebook Live. So that's just a reminder, if you're looking for whatever we're doing during the legislative session and you want minute by minute recaps, please follow our Facebook page to know what we're up to on each date. But having a hearing this early in the session just is proof that we're rocking and rolling in this session with a lot of our issues. We've released several times, if you get our weekly email, our top priorities for the legislative session. A number of those include protecting privacy rights, protecting religious liberty, and just protecting parental rights and education, just to recap it succinctly. But we'll be announcing anytime that we think that you need to be to the Capitol to testify, to advocate for your issues, just like we were at the Capitol this past week. That being said, we did have a very exciting update related to this session, but actually from the executive branch yesterday. Yesterday, Governor Greg Abbott kind of was inspired by President Trump's executive order that came out last Monday that established the two sexes, male and female, and created kind of a similar version for Texas. So Governor Abbott wrote a letter to both the Department of Public Safety and the Department of Health and Human Services to reiterate the truth that there are only two sexes, male and female. And you may remember the reason why he pointed out these two departments is because this past summer, we learned that both of these agencies were going to follow policy to recognize the two sexes and try to stop changing sex on birth certificates and driver's licenses, because there was intel that the Travis County, I believe, Department of Public Safety was changing sex on driver's licenses. So this is good news that this was reiterated by this letter. But this letter didn't just go to those two individual agencies, because we know those agencies were obeying that guidance from the summer. It went to all state agencies. So it requires that all state agencies have their policies, their employment practices, everything related to the agency align with the truth that there's only male and female. So this is very good news that we have this coming from the executive branch, coming from the governor in our state, but that does mean we have more to do at the state legislature with our bills to define woman, to protect privacy rights. Some of those bills being spearheaded and championed by Representative Ellen Troxclair, Senator Mace Middleton, Representative Valerie Swanson, and we'll be giving you updates as soon as we can on the movement on those pieces of legislation and how you can get involved. We know that there's some exciting news related to Title IX recently about a new Dear Colleague letter going out, making sure that the 2020 version of Title IX and not the Biden version of Title IX will be followed. But that's not all the issue. We know that privacy rights, because of gender ideology and gender identity politics, doesn't just reach the classroom, but it extends beyond that, whether it's dressing rooms, our locker rooms in a public gym, or restrooms, wherever you go. This issue is very expansive. So we're working hard in this session to make sure that everywhere you go, the truth is acknowledged that there are only two sexes, male and female.
Thanks, Mary Elizabeth. Yeah, and another thing that traditionally happens about this time of session and did in fact happen this week is that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick released his list of priority legislation for the session. And these are issues that are encapsulated in bills which define what the lieutenant governor believes are the most important issues to be passed in the session. Now, this doesn't mean that other issues won't be passed or that they're not important, but the ones designated by the lieutenant governor as priorities receive a low bill number, and they usually have the inside track on passage for legislation. So thankfully, among the list of 25 issues released by the lieutenant governor, and there will be 40 ultimately, but the first 25 were released. Among those are several issues that Texas Values is leading on and is planning on making a priority of the legislation ourselves. And those include, of course, Senate Bill 2, which we already knew was a priority as school choice, and Mary Elizabeth reported had a hearing this week. Also, SB 10, which will be placing the 10 Commandments in public schools. Now, Texas Values will be working on this as a priority in this session for several reasons, but chiefly because the 10 Commandments are the source of all morality in our laws. And if we ever hope to increase the understanding of our Judeo-Christian heritage, we have to educate students on the 10 Commandments. Another one is SB 11, which is a bill to establish a clear statutory right for public school employees to pray while they're at school, while they're at their work, which is school. And this is derived from a successful religious freedom case that was decided by the U.S. Supreme Court for Coach Joe Kennedy back in 2022. SB 12 will be a bill to establish parental rights in public education. We know this is important because one of the most important and fundamental rights established under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution is the right of parents to raise their children free from government interference and to educate their children as they see fit. So this is something that many public schools have disrespected for a long time. This is something that the lieutenant governor wants to clarify statutorily. And then SB 13 goes along with this by guarding against inappropriate books in public schools. And we'll be working on this issue as well. And then finally, SB 18 has to do with stopping drag time story hour. And if you're not familiar with this issue, Texas Values has worked many years to protect kids from being sexualized at an early age by these radical over-sexualized performers in our public libraries who try to indoctrinate kids through story hour and disguise themselves as trying to do something good, but are really trying to indoctrinate with sexualization. So that's a lot of issues. There are more that are less related to what we work on, but we aren't complaining because we're grateful that the lieutenant governor sees the crucial nature of our work and what we do and how important it is for faith, family, and freedom. And speaking of our work, Megan, would you remind folks of some of the events and things we have coming up in the next couple of months?
Yeah, well, thanks, Covey. We actually have a pretty exciting event coming up yet, so stay tuned for details. But as of now, get ready to come to the Capitol in early March of this year for our Faith and Family Day. This is an event that we have during every legislative session, and it's just an opportunity for our supporters and anyone really that is interested in getting more involved to come down to the Capitol and advocate for their beliefs. So if you are interested in preserving and protecting faith, family, and freedom, this is your chance to be a part of the process and have boots on the ground and become a more engaged and informed citizen. So stay tuned for more information on that. We will be giving you a date pretty soon. But for now, just mark your calendars for early March, and we will get back to you with more information on that. But when we're on the topic of events going on, the Texas Values team just got done with an event on Monday night that we had for legislators and staff at the Capitol. As part of our boots on the ground efforts, during legislative session, we were able to meet with legislators and staff at our downtown Capitol office and talk to them about our priorities for this session and hand out a lot of valuable information about why our priorities for session are so important. So this is just another event that we're able to put on every legislative session because of your valuable support. And on that same note, there are many things happening at the Capitol right now. But one thing that we are excited for and we're waiting on is the House committees to come out. We're hoping that that's going to happen sometime next week. And once we get the House committees, we will be able to start hearing bills pretty soon after that. So these are a couple of the things that are going on right now and that we have in the works.
And while we're sort of on the topic of our of events as well, Governor Abbott will be doing his State of the State address on Sunday, this Sunday afternoon. So it'll be available on Nexstar stations and should be available on KXAN for those of you in the Austin area. But take a look at that if you get a chance to watch Governor Abbott's State of the State address. He'll give some vital information on what he considers to be emergency items for the legislative session. And of course, next week, when we do our next video on this, we should be able to break down some of those issues and let you know a little bit more about what Governor Abbott was talking about and what the emergency items will entail. So that closes out our Friday update on this very last day of January 2025. Remember that if you want to stay up to date with breaking news and information at the Capitol, you can text TX Values to 797979. We also have a Texas Values app on the Apple Store. And also remember that our team is available for speaking requests. So if you're a conservative group looking for your next speaker for your monthly meeting, or you just really love our work and you want a one-off legislative update, any of those reasons, email our info email and set something up, because we would love to come out and speak to your group. And that's how together we will continue to make a difference for faith, family, and freedom in the state of Texas. Thanks for joining us.